Okay, everyone, welcome to DigiPaint's 2026 merch workshop. Woo!
Yay!
I am Elaine, a DigiPaint veteran. That's not the word I meant to use, but that's me, and so is Mari. I actually lost the Zoom tab, but that's okay. So I'm Elaine, this is Mari. We will introduce ourselves in a second. This is kind of a walkthrough of what we're gonna go over today. Introduction to merch, why make merch, where you can make money, hint hint. The kinds that we will be going over today and the kinds that DigiPaint will be helping you produce, as well as a broad introduction into the other things you can do, as well as some specific technical details. And then we'll have time for questions at the end. Alrighty, so why would you want to design merchandise? Well, you are a person who exists in the physical world, and although digital art is cool, it is also pretty cool to have your art in the physical world. So that is what we're going to teach you how to do today. Making merch is a great way to have a physical collectible, stuff to share with your friends, stuff to take home, collectibles, keepsakes, and then these are the three main types of merch we'll be going over today. And another great benefit of having a physical item is that you can exchange goods for money. And the best place for you to do this is at a convention, of which there are many across the United States and internationally, some of which are located right here in Michigan. So, we have UMich, which is around every Halloween weekend in Detroit. We have Congenai in Ann Arbor, as Nora mentioned, which is happening in a few months right here at the MLB. And there's also, for example, My Anime in Novi. So those are just a few to get started. There's also lots of local shops everywhere. So, you know, once you get a hold of this, you can keep your eyes peeled for opportunities. Who am I? What kind of cons? Etc., etc. My name is Elaine. I also go by Elodius on the internet, and I've been to a few of these back in my day. Now retired, but here I'm passing my wisdom on to you. I've been to conventions, Anime NYC in NYC, Anime Expo in LA, and I've been to, UMich, as I mentioned. I've done Congenai, etc., etc. I've actually been to one in Canada, which was pretty cool, but this is just to say that you can get the opportunities to travel, to meet people, etc., etc. And then on the right is kind of an example of my catalog after I've made some sticker designs, some keychains. So it's like you have art, you can have that in person in a real place and talk to people while you're at it. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Mari, but you already knew that too. I make, I've dabbled in merch production, as you can see. I run an Etsy shop with my friend Greer, called Chaos Inks. And I've also started to do conventions. I've been doing a lot of Pokemon markets recently, and if you guys can make it to New Jersey, by Sunday, I'll be at MiniCon in Newark, New Jersey, so anyone who wants to come, just kidding. But I plan to sign up for UMich, so maybe I'll see you there. And yeah.
Yay. All right, so in a great place to start, hint, hint, is at our university's local convention, which, as we've mentioned, is happening in April. That is a Saturday. It's our one-day convention. It goes from noon to 10 p.m. and you can take a picture or Google it, whatever. All right.
So, what type of merch should I make is a question you might be asking yourself. And there are a lot of things to consider. Like a big question that I get asked a lot of the time when it comes to like making merch for like an Etsy or convention spaces is like, should I make original work or should I make fan art? And I say, honestly, everything really has its own niche, and the most important thing is to make merch about things you are passionate about rather than what you think is like quote unquote popular, because you will always like kind of find your audience, especially if you're selling online or selling in person. People will walk by and think your art is nice and buy it. Um, but like, yes, at the end of the day, like fan art can bring in a little bit more money since it has like a fan base around it. But if you're not into like all that fandom stuff, original work can do just as well. And there are a lot of people who just do original work. So don't like let that turn you off from making original work. And also, you can make as much fan art as you want. Like 99% of my stuff is fan art and it does great.
Yeah. Basically, no pressure. If you do want to sell something this year at Kanjanai, just do whatever you want. It's basically school subsidized. Okay. So the first kind of merchandise we're going to talk about today is the print. It is ubiquitous. If you already have existing art, it's a great place to start because you basically, you don't have to draw anything new. There's only a few details to consider before you can format it and print it and then stick it on your wall, in your locker, whatever. So the most important thing to consider is that once you print out that art, it will no longer be in a digital space. Okay, wait, we're still back. It's okay, guys. Setbacks happen all the time, especially if you're at a convention, you like leave all your frames at home or something. You will learn how to problem solve. What was I saying? Yes, digital will be converted into physical. The main difference in the color profile is that on your screen, you're probably going to be looking at RGB, stands for red, green, and blue lights. That's some basic color theory. You can Google it. But when it's printed, it's going to be using CMYK. That's the ink and toner that the printer uses. C is cyan, M is magenta, Y is yellow, and then K is black for whatever reason. But you can see here in this example, on the left is the original digital file I did, and then on the right is kind of what it looks like in person. This was a really fun character because blue is not one of the friendliest colors to print. So I had to, maneuver my way around that. But if you're drawing a piece from scratch, it's good to keep that kind of conversion in mind, that it's going to look different in person than it does on your screen. And another thing to consider if you're printing something is you can actually have multiple kinds of paper. There's a lot of fancy effects that you can have. Normally, it's going to be on pretty nice cardstock, different from like regular printer paper. If you've seen a print, it's like nice and shiny. You can also go matte, you can have textures on it, it can be holographic, foiled, etc., etc. There's a lot of things to do, but do not let the paper overshadow your actual art design on there. So if you think about what you want printed on a piece of paper, what you want blown up on the wall, you might also want to consider the subject matter, the composition, like what it might look like from far away, what it might look like up close, and we'll also go over how to view that on your screen. And a few more technical details. You should always consider the resolution of the piece before you submit it for printing, because again, we exist in a physical world, and there are limitations that the printer can print in that space. You want to aim for a pretty high resolution at 300 dpi, which stands for dots per inch, which is literally how many dots that printer is going to be able to print onto the page. So this is just like a representation of what that means. Sometimes you'll see like a low quality image get blown up super high. It's not going to automatically like look nice and sharp, so that's something you want to consider. And something else is the dimensions of the file. Basically, these are the most common dimensions that we have listed, which means they will be cheaper for the printer to print. So if you have something similar to those dimensions, you can consider trimming a side down or shifting things around so that the printer won't have to custom like cut the edges. Last thing is the bleed. Basically, if your image goes all the way to the edge of the paper, like for example, in my example it does, you would want to kind of give a little bit of leeway to that. So just add a little bit of width on either side. Yeah.
And then for stickers, it's another Artist Alley staple. I feel like almost everyone has stickers at their tables. And stickers are cool because a lot of people assume that they're paper, which sometimes they are, especially if you make them at home, but the ones that we're going to be making are going to be vinyl. So they're going to be waterproof and they're going to be sunproof, and they're really nice quality, and they're like glossy and nice. Traditionally they are die cut, which means they follow the edge of the art, as you can see in like my examples here. But you can also do like a traditional circle cut sticker if you just want to kind of make like a more uniform type of sticker like that. And the fun thing about stickers, you can add cool effects, almost like the paper that Elaine was talking about. You can add like holographic effects, and the holographic effects actually come in like different shapes. So you can get like broken glass or hearts or stars. There's a lot of different things that you can do. It's really cool. And you know, stickers are fun. You can put them on laptops, water bottles, headphones, sketchbooks. They're great for that. Stickers are great, but you guys know how to use stickers, so
Wait, how many people have stickers on their laptop like right now? Listen, you guys are on a college campus. I'm always collecting stickers. If you want to make money, I feel like stickers is a good way to go. Anyway,
everyone loves stickers.
It's true. So if you're designing a sticker from scratch, you want to consider some of the same things that we talked about for prints. You can try to have it at a high resolution. Think about how the colors are going to work out after it's been printed. And something else you might want to consider is like the design clarity and the silhouette, because these are generally going to be pretty small, right? You want to go with a kind of simpler design, and the silhouette should hopefully be legible, and then have dimensions that aren't like too crazy, nothing like sticking out on one side. So this is kind of an example on the left, like first draft, second draft. Also, I was like mass producing these designs, so I had to simplify them down, but yes. All right, another kind of merchandise, the third and final kind of merchandise we're going to talk about today are keychains. I love keychains. They are great in decorating whatever you have around. You can hold them. They are three-dimensional in that they have two sides, right? And they can go on keys. Oh, I left my keys in my bag, but that's okay. They can go on clothes, backpacks, Eda bags, and corkboards. So I think they're just a really fun way to accessorize, you know, strike up a conversation on the bus with someone who has that keychain, etc. So I feel like as like a fashion statement and as a way to not lose your keys, they're pretty fantastic.
For keychains, there are a lot of things that you want to kind of consider when taking your designs and kind of putting them onto a keychain. So of course, you're going to think about resolution. You typically want to aim for 300 dpi because that's just what you typically want to do when printing. And it's easier to size down than size up. So typically and you can also like view it as like the actual size too, and we'll go into that later. Also for the color profile, we're going to be telling you about this a lot, but you want to check what it's going to look like when it's in CMYK and not RGB, because some people be like, oh, why is the purple not as vibrant? If you're using purple, be very careful, because the printers do not like purple. And yeah, we're going to think about design clarity. We'll go into that later, and how you can kind of make a nice keychain. And for the dimensions, this goes into design clarity as well. You're going to want to keep it kind of a square design, because if you do like a really tall design, it's going to kind of make it like a really skinny piece of acrylic, just because it only, like if you're making a 2.5 inch keychain, the height's going to be 2.5, but then like the width's going to be really, really skinny. So it's better to think about that and kind of make it kind of a square design where it's kind of even on both the height and the width. And yeah.
You don't want it to be like something that could damage somebody, right?
Yeah.
And then just for like some context, this is around 3 inches. This one on my card keys, I finally found it, is around 1 inch. So I feel like most keychains are around 1.5, 2 inches. But like they get bigger than you think. I can't really imagine wearing this around. So don't go too crazy is my advice.
Yeah.
With the sizing, I mean.
All my keychains are 2.5, so You just choose a size and go with it.
That's true. And what I was talking about earlier is that they do have two sides that, unlike a sticker, you can see both sides of. So if you want, you can make different designs, which can be pretty fun for like storytelling purposes, or if you have different text. Like I said, the text has to be mirrored as well. So just something else to consider when you're thinking about 3D space.
So a very like typical design that a lot of people like to do for keychains in particular is chibis. And if you don't know what a chibi is, it's basically just taking a character and kind of simplifying them to make their head really big. Almost make like think of like an Animal Crossing character almost, kind of like that proportion. And chibis are typically 2 to 3 heads tall. And this just kind of makes the character design a little bit more readable at a small scale. And it'll kind of help you avoid having like a really skinny keychain like we went over earlier. Chibis typically have less detailed limbs and put emphasis on the face because honestly, like a lot of people, the character is recognizable through their face. So you kind of want to pull kind of their attention to that. And here are 2 chibis that I drew, one with like the 2 head tall, kind of almost 2.5 heads tall. And then Zelda is a little bit taller. So you can just play around with the proportions and see what matches what you think would make a good merch design. If you don't like how it looks, you can always alter it too. So just honestly play around with the proportions. And like we're gonna talk about later, you're not shackled to chibis. So if you don't like them, it's okay. And here we go, non-chibi designs. They're so doable. There's so many things you can do. Like I said, full bodies might be a little bit more difficult because they're gonna be harder to see at like 2.5 inches, which is tiny. But you can work around this by thinking about composition, maybe adding a background if you want them to be like a secondary subject matter in the overall piece. A lot of non-chibi designs are usually like busts, but yeah. You can also do like non-human subjects as well. So like food, flowers, animals, Pokemon at their like kind of exact proportions. So you are not shackled to chibis at all, and do whatever your heart desires when it comes to merch.
So on that note, we are not helping you produce this. I don't think we can afford that, but in the future, this is just to get you inspired. You're not limited to any of these things that we talked about today. There's lots of different types of merch you can produce. We have like a little purse there, a little towel. You can do metal bookmarks. You can make tote bags. Like this is for me. This is pretty easy. You like draw a design and then you can pay someone to print it on something. And then there's a wall scroll, which was really cool. But just, the world is your oyster. I feel that you guys have good design skills. If you have entrepreneurial spirit, you can just make anything. You can just make things. So yeah. And then back to DigiPaint. What we are gonna help you with are those 3 things we talked about today: prints, stickers, and keychains. So this is the manufacturers that we're gonna use, and we'll handle all of that so that you guys can focus on drawing the designs and expressing yourselves. Key. And like we mentioned earlier, there are ways to set up your drawing programs so that they can show approximate what the colors will look like in real life. And so here is what we have for some of the most common drawing programs. And we'll share these slides so you don't have to worry about that. But this is just really helpful for getting a approximation of what that really bright purple or that really bright blue will look like in real life. And you can also do a similar thing with the file size. So if you calibrate the size of your monitor, I don't really know that part, but if you get it calibrated, you're able to display like the size of the image in real size, in actual size. So there's how that works for Photoshop, Clip Studio, and Procreate. So you could be money Fibonacci guy.
So for naming your keychain files, you can access like this slideshow whenever. So whenever you're making your beautiful merch pieces for Kanj and I, you can know exactly how to name them for us. So this also like applies to when you would be like ordering them off Grace yourself. So this is also very helpful. Again, make sure your files are in CMYK. You guys know that. We told you that 100 times. But it's important to also, just for ease for us, have your art as a transparent background PNG. So just have your art just with no background. And then you're going to be naming your file in a specific way. So you're going to do the design name. So this can be anything. It doesn't matter, just so the company knows how to differentiate them. And then the quantity that you want, and then the clasp code. I'll go into the clasps like after I tell you how to like name everything, because that's like another thing. And then if you're doing a double-sided design, you're gonna want to label the front and back if they are different. And like especially if there is like mirrored text on the back, it would be swapped. So like the text would be mirrored, and then that would be the back, and then when it gets printed, it would be the right way. And then just for keychains, remember that the quantity is multiplied by 1. So the quantity is like true to the number of keychains. So if I wanted 10 end keychains, I would just put 10 pieces. But this is not the case for stickers, which we'll get into. Yeah. And then for naming sticker files, again, you guys know CMYK, transparent background, yes. So you're all set with that. And then we're going to be naming our file with the design name and then the quantity. And then the really weird thing about the stickers is, remember that the quantity is multiplied by 10. So if you want 10 stickers, you're just going to do a quantity of 1. So I want 10 Magikarp stickers. I'm just going to do Magikarp plus 1. And then clasps. Clasps are really cool because you get to customize your really already cool acrylic keychain. You get to choose a color, if you want it metallic or not, the shape. There's so many options. And here are just like the typical ones that you get on Vogue Grace. So say I wanted my keychain to have the gold heart clasp. I would do the name and then 10 pieces and then plus 1801. And then the production company would know, okay, they want this with the gold heart key clasp. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay. We covered a lot. Does anyone have any pressing questions at the moment? Oh, good. If you run into something, you're like, wait, I low-key don't know how to do this, you can always ask one of us in person. You can ping someone on Discord. So just remember, we're always here to help.